guys, welcome to Truth Talkin' Thursday. This is Jim. I'm Jane, and we're good to go for another week.
We are.
So last week, just kind of quickly to recap, we were talking about the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. And we were talking about kind of applying that to a family life in situations. So I know that Jim and I have talked about, I have two teenagers and, well, adults, I guess now. They're not really teenagers anymore. You know, as parents, I think sometimes we forget how old they are and you know, maybe that they can take some responsibility. And so we talked about doing some scenarios as far as how we could cut the aggression, I guess I'd say, and be more assertive in including our children in a family life. So I was kind of thinking, Jim, if you're okay with this, I really like the way Jim is able to explain. He's helped me in a lot of those areas with my children, just in learning how to speak in a way that doesn't antagonize them and get my point across. And I think I'm seeing more and more that's one of the areas that me personally I need to work on, is just knowing what I want and being able to stand up for it and stay on track for that, not get dissuaded by their, well, Mom, you don't do this, or Mom, you don't do this, or it has to stay on track. This is the issue and this is how it needs to be solved, or do you have any input? So I guess what's kind of on my mind, and I think is probably on a lot of parents' mind, is getting the kids to help be a part of the chores around the house. Can you offer any insight into?
That's a big one, and it's one that sort of plagues most families, especially with little. I mean, little kids. It's a little different. You know, they have the attention span of a gnat. So I mean, trying to get them to do anything for any length of time is really a difficult job.
Squirrel.
Yes, exactly. But with the kids that are capable of helping out and stuff, it's for some families it's a real chore, and so I think, I mean, it goes back to really knowing what it is you want as a parent. There's a couple of things here I think too that really need to be sort of cleared up a bit, I guess. In that I get into these discussions all the time with parents when I do family work and that sort of thing, and really one of the statements that I hear an awful lot is, well, my kids are my best friend and I'm their best friend, and I want to, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to tell them that that's not a good thing.
Jim, violence is not the answer.
No, I know, and I have to remember what I'm here for. It's not a good thing, and I understand what they mean, but when you put yourself in a position as a parent to be your child's best friend, you got problems, because once you're their best friend, you cannot be their parent anymore, and it's very, very difficult for parents to discipline kids. To be not tough on them, but to say what needs to be said at certain times,
and at certain ages,
and at certain ages.
Like there's a fine line between that. When they're younger, it's easier. Like I found it was easier for me to tell my kids, okay, you know, here's your wash. You need to fold it and put it away, and actually kind of make them do it. You know, once they get past that age, you need to employ some different
skills.
Yeah.
So one of them is to forget the best friend thing, so that you can do that. And best friends don't tell their other best friends how to go about their business.
Right.
They don't. So Jane's right. We need to be able to kind of identify what the issues are and be clear about it, and be able to state them in a way that doesn't antagonize, that you don't get into name calling, you don't have to raise your voice, you don't have to threaten, you don't have to do anything like that. So let's use the example, for instance, of a family has a teenager. It doesn't matter, boy, girl, doesn't make any difference really, I don't think, in that regard. And the problem is getting to keep their rooms sort of cleaned up, so that you don't have to go in and kind of do that. Now, You don't have to do it anyway, but most parents will take it on just because they can't stand to have a room like that. How do you get your kids to pick up after themselves? How do you get your kids to help out with those kind of chores around the house and all that sort of thing? So going back to what we had said a couple of weeks ago about the difference between being assertive and aggressive is, one, the assertive piece is being able to state your needs but not jeopardize the needs of the person that you're talking to. You have to take their needs into consideration as well. The aggressive way is to just yell at them, threaten them, do whatever you want to do to get your needs met, but there's no thought given to what are the needs of the person that you're talking to.
And calling them I was just thinking as you were, once we get, as parents, once we get pushed to a certain point, it's easy to take that
Absolutely.
tactic where we're saying, you're so lazy, you never do anything, and why do you have to be so sloppy, and you're so disorganized. Well, that does nothing to help the person or yourself. It's not gonna do any good.
That's right. You're just driving a wedge between the two of you. You're never going to get close to getting your needs met and being fair to the other person. So let's say, for instance, that little Johnny. We'll use little Johnny. Poor little Johnny. He always gets beat up in these scenarios, but so he doesn't. He doesn't pick up his clothes after him. He just comes home from school. He throws them in the corner, blah, and they're dirty and all that kind of stuff. And mom's running around trying to keep the place clean and all that kind of thing. And I mean, in some of these cases, mom's a single parent and she's working 2 jobs. She's just whacked. I mean, she's tired by the time she gets home from the second job, and she puts some food on the table and all that kind of stuff. Does she really want to go around and pick up after little Johnny when he's 12 or 13 or 14 years old and he's quite capable of doing it himself? How do you get little Johnny to do it without threatening him or screaming at him and calling him names and all that kind of stuff, which we do. We lose that sort of composure, and away we go. The easiest thing to do really is to identify. You take little Johnny and you sit him down and you say, I need to discuss this with you. The whole thing about trying to get your kids involved in helping you is to recognize that they have needs too, and they have rights too, and they need those rights observed. And it doesn't mean that you have to be held hostage by their rights, but we need to identify the fact that they have them, and we can't discard them. So it's much easier to get compliance out of your kids if you can join with them, as opposed to be the power over them. Once you get in a power struggle with a kid, you're screwed. The kid's going to win every time. Every time the kid's going to win, because they're just meaner, more tenacious, and they can go on and on and on for as long as they need to. We run out of steam because we're just tired, we're beat up, we're all that kind of thing. So getting into a power struggle with your kids is not going to get you closer to. So you sit them down at the table, say, I'd like to have a conversation with you about something. That now you've asked him to join you in a conversation. And you want to identify the issue. The issue is the clothes are dirty, and you really want them to kind of do something to kind of help keep the room clean and all that sort of thing. So you just ask them, and you state clearly the facts and the consequences of what's happening here. So it's very difficult for me to work all day and then come home and need to clean your room. So here's the deal. I will wash your clothes for you. No problem. I don't have a problem doing that. I will only wash the clothes that make it to the clothes hamper. So in other words, Johnny, if your clothes end up in the corner of the room, I will not go in and pick them up. But what I will do is I will take the clothes that you managed to get in the clothes hamper and wash them and dry them and fold them up and bring them back and put them in your room on the bed, or however that works out. But if the clothes don't make it to the hamper, I am not going to wash them. I won't pick them up. And at the end of the week, or the end of 2 weeks, or however long it takes you to go through socks and underwear and t-shirts, if you don't have any washed and clean, you're either going to need to do them yourself, or you're going to have to go to school and hang around your buddies with a bit of a smell on you, So that's the way it is. So I would appreciate it. Certainly, it'd be very helpful to both of us if you were just able to kind of put it in the hamper and I will make sure that they go from there and they get cleaned. That's it. You don't need to say any more. Took about a minute and a half. You don't need to go on and on and on about it. You don't need to recap it and all this sort of stuff. You could ask for clarification. You have any questions about that? But that's it. Leave it. Get up, walk away. That's it. And see how it goes. And he's going to test you. You know that for sure. You, as a parent, have to let it be. And if it's not a slight on you as a parent, if little Johnny walks around with pants or a shirt on that's filthy, that's up to him. And
you have to be strong enough not to go back and pick up little Johnny's clothes that are in the corner. Don't do it.
Do it once and you're screwed.
Exactly. I think that's I think it really is that simple. I know that in the past I've done some of those things, and it's funny because when you talk about laundry, that's one area that I think my kids and I are pretty understanding on. I did that very thing. I said, you know what? If your clothes are not in the hamper, because they each had a wash hamper in their closets in their rooms, and I told them, if your clothes aren't in there, I'm not washing them. And actually, the kids weren't the only ones that got told that. If your stuff isn't in the wash hamper, I'm not doing it. And my mom was like that too. My mom did the same thing, and we knew without a doubt she would wash our clothes. We had to fold them and put them away, but she would make sure on laundry day that everything was washed, as long as it was in that hamper.
That's right.
And I think that's reasonable. There's no denying that. And I think Jim is right in that when you take a stand like that and you do your part, it can't help but resolve itself eventually. And yes, like you said, they will test you.
Oh, they will for sure. There's and you can use this little approach here. It's not rocket science. You can use it for almost anything around in the house that you need help with and all that kind of stuff. You need to clearly state what the issue is. You need to clearly state what you're prepared to do to solve the issue. You need to be clear about what he needs to do to solve the issue. Those are the three kind of main elements here, and he also needs to understand that there's a consequence for not being helpful in that way. The consequence in this case with the laundry thing is he's going to go to school smelling like he stepped into some dog doo-doo on the way at some point if he doesn't put his clothes in there. Or he's going to walk around with dirty clothes on. So that's the consequence. You need to, all four of those little points need to be involved in the conversation with little John. And it doesn't matter, most of the time, with most issues around the house and getting chores done and all that kind of stuff, if you follow that little 4-point thing there, more times than not, you'll be successful.
I think that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. And that works for many different age groups too. I mean, of course, you change your words and things like that as well. But bottom line here is little Johnny doesn't want to smell. And little Johnny's mommy doesn't want little Johnny to smell.
No.
So, I think that's a pretty fair expectation for mommy to have a little Johnny.
Yeah.
So if you've got a little Johnny in your house, I think, the older little Johnny gets, I think he'll be fairly conscious that he really doesn't want to smell because little Susie might not like little Johnny then.
That's right. Nicely put. Nicely put.
So have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for stopping by.